Welcome to another Tudor Cameo episode. These very short episodes will be slotted in between the normal ones and will cover those characters who made a fleeting yet tantalizing appearance in other episodes. We don't always have a lot of information about them, so they can't have a full episode of their own, but they are too interesting to abandon completely. And they help fill in the gaps and enable us to create as full a picture of the era as we can. And today, Adriano Castellesi. It's fun to say.
It is. Italian things always are. We met Castellesi in Pope Alexander VI episode.
Yes.
He was the one who threw that fateful dinner party.
Yes, he killed them and poisoned them.
Yes. And I think we came across him in Polydor Virgil's episode
Yes,
too.
we did.
He was born in 1461 to what was described as a modest and almost servile family.
Ooh.
Which is a bit damning, isn't it?
Yes.
He started a career in papal bureaucracy, and I should imagine that it doesn't come any more bureaucratic than papal bureaucracy,
No.
would it? In 1488, he was sent to Scotland by Pope Innocent VIII to mediate in the Scottish Civil War.
Oh.
James III died at the Battle of Sockieburn, so Castellesi's mediation was no longer required, since you can't mediate between one person.
Seance.
I did notice, apropos of nothing, that James III had 3 children, 2 of which were called James. And usually you get that if one dies very young, but one was the next king and the other one was Archbishop, so I know they made them Archbishop very young
Yeah,
because it
so
was
they
lucrative, but not that young.
2 James that survived.
On his way back to Rome, Castellesi met Henry VII, who made him papal collector for England, which seemed odd. I assumed that the Pope would do that, but the Pope just confirmed it. So we're into Alexander VI now. But I suppose the Pope doesn't really have time to interview every position in his entire
No.
jurisdiction, so he probably assumed that people would let him know who they want and then he'd vet them and decide.
Possibly.
Because they didn't always get what they wanted, or the Pope didn't always get what he wanted, did he? Because Elizabeth of York wanted her confessor, didn't he? And the Pope said, "Oh no, I've got someone else," and she said,
like,
"No,
"Too
I want
late.
this one."
I've already done it.
Yeah. The papal collector was the collector of papal income tax, and this was levied ostensibly to fight the Ottoman Turks.
Ooh.
But there was money to be made all along the line, and Castellesi was no exception, and he became very wealthy. I was thinking it'd be interesting to do a special episode on all the things that were said to be done against the Ottoman Turks, which really have an ulterior motive.
Well, we may, on a Patreon episode, be doing Sultan Mehmed II of the Ottoman Empire. Mm-hmm.
Well, early days, but it might do.
Yep, if they choose him, we'll be doing him.
In 1492, Henry VII granted Castellesi the prebend of Earldland in St Paul's Cathedral, which was another nice little earner. It is I looked it up, but all I could get was sort of one of these things that seemed to go around in circles. The prebend had the prebendary, and the prebendary was run by the prebend.
Oh, jeez.
I spent quite some time doing that before I thought, it probably doesn't matter. All that matters is that he was making quite a bit of money out of it.
Okay, if anybody listening is Catholic, please let us know, because I've never heard of that.
Well, you get a prebendary manor, which would be Earldland, and you can get the rents from the prebendary manor.
Okay.
It's another of these nice little sinecures, I think. So that was a nice little earner, as was St Dunstan in the east, which was given to him by Cardinal Morton. So there's a lot of money to be made by these ecclesiastical gravy trains, isn't there?
Yes, there is. And from different countries, too.
Yes, he's not an English...
No.
He was granted English denizen, as Edward Brampton had been, in that same year, in 1492.
Do we know what rights they get as a denizen?
I don't know, actually.
Okay.
It's got to be less than being a citizen.
Yes.
I'll look that up and put it as one of the Tudor treats on Facebook.
Okay.
Then he became the clerk of the papal treasury, as well as that of the bishopric of Hereford. He's got his finger in a lot of pies. In 1504, Castellesi was appointed to the diocese of Bath and Wells, although he never actually lived there. You wonder how they justified this to themselves, really.
No idea. I'm just going to
there's still a bishop of Bath and Wells, and he lives in Wells, I think. Well, there's the Bishop's Palace in Wells. I guess he lives in Wells. They actually do the job now. They don't just pocket the money.
Yeah.
Pope Alexander made him nuncio with powers to reform the clergy, which made me wonder, why would he want to reform the clergy when he's doing so well out of it?
Did he do anything to reform the clergy? Probably not. Or he just got rid of a few clergy and just took the money for himself and didn't do those jobs either.
I mean, when you see all this, you can see why there was such a revolt against it. In March 1498, Castellesi tried to buy a cardinalship for 20,000 ducats, which is quite a substantial sum.
Yes, it is.
But he was unsuccessful. I don't know if you get the money back if you're unsuccessful. I very much doubt it.
I don't think so.
But luckily, he was very close to Pope Alexander, who gave him one anyway.
Oh.
Or possibly sold him one. So I'm not going to give you that for this 20,000 ducats, but I might give you that for this other amount of money you're going to give me. I'm not quite sure how that worked. Castellesi was still collector, papal collector, and you think, when did you find the time? But I suppose if he never actually did any of these other jobs.
Yes.
And his deputy was Polydore Virgil. 6th of August 1503, Castellesi, back in Rome, threw a dinner party. He probably wished it hadn't. Several of the guests were taken ill, as was Castellesi himself, and as we heard, Alexander didn't make it. And I don't know what it was that affected them, whether it was deliberate poisoning or accidental food poisoning, but whatever it was, it had a horrible effect. Because we heard in the Pope's episode that Cesare was dunked in a bath, and when he came out, all the skin peeled off his back.
But didn't we think that might have been due to syphilis? Now that we're adding that into every episode.
But Castellesi had the same thing.
Oh. Okay, so what kind of illness causes blistering? Because blistering would soften the skin.
Yeah, well, I was wondering if any of our listeners are expert on poisons, and, we won't ask why you're expert on poisoning, but what would have that effect? So if anybody knows, let us know.
Yeah.
Gruesome.
Did Castellesi survive?
Yes. Yes, perhaps he didn't need his skin. I don't know. He must have grown another one. There was one person who was probably hoping that Castellesi didn't survive, though, and that was a character called Silvestro Gigli. I sometimes have, when I've written this out, I let the voice, the computer voice, read it back to me. Yeah. And she kept calling him Silvestro Gigli. So I think it was Silvestro Gigli now. Initially, they were working together, getting the Pope to confirm the treaty between England and Scotland, but they soon fell out. Castellesi claimed to be the sole representative of Henry VII in Rome, ignoring the fact that he and Gigli
now we're jiggly. Jiggly.
were meant to be doing the job jointly. Castellesi's close link with Alexander made him automatically suspect with Pope Julius.
Yes.
It doesn't, it's lucrative to get close to somebody, but
dangerous at the same time.
Yes.
Especially with popes, they don't live long. They're usually elected in late in life.
He was still able to do his job. Presumably that's the papal collector. Mm-hmm. He had a luxurious palace that he built near the Vatican, which was where that fateful dinner party was held, and he put this at the disposal of Henry for use by his ambassadors. Now, I wonder why he did that. I wondered if he could have thought, I might lose this under Julius, but if I hand it over to Henry for his use,
then
I might get it back again later on.
Or get something else in return.
Well, it's quite a wise thing to do. He did various other things. What else did he do? Yes, of course. He presented Margaret Beaufort's request for a dispensation making John Fisher her confessor. He was also responsible for pushing to have the papal dispensation for the marriage between Prince Henry and Catherine of Aragon. But when that finally came through, all the glory went to Gigli, which must have stung.
No,
I'm going to stick with Gigli now. I like Gigli.
Okay.
On a trip to Bologna, he wrote 2 books, the more famous being one that extolled the precedence of scripture over human reasoning. Oh. I'm not going to read that one. I didn't like the sound of that. I quite like human reasoning.
Me too.
Yes. In September 1507, Castellesi fled Rome and went to Venice. Why?
Yeah.
Well, it seems that Henry VII dobbed him right in it and told Pope Julius of Castellesi's criticism of the papal court and the Pope himself.
Oops. Why would Henry have done that?
I don't know whether it was... I mean, that's the trouble. Again, we've got these little snippets of information, but nothing to join them up.
Yes.
I don't know whether he did it deliberately, whether he said, oh, you should hear what Castellesi's been saying about you, and then thought, oh, I shouldn't have said that. But I'm not sure.
That's one of those emails that you're like, oh, take it back, take it back, take
I
it
said
back.
the wrong person.
It's already in France. Darn it.
Unless he didn't mean it to go to Pope Julius.
Possibly
that
not.
happens as well. And certainly quite a lot of letters went to Henry VII that weren't intended for him.
Yes.
Which were quite handy for him. Henry then did put in a good word for him with the Pope, but surely it was too little too late by then.
I would think so.
Yes, which makes it sound as if it was an accident. He didn't expect it to reach the Pope. But despite Julius's assurance that Castellesi had nothing to fear from him, Castellesi found that the money coming from the papal collector job dried up. And Polydore Virgil was also made to give up his part in that. So
yes. In Polydore Virgil's episode, it was Polydore that screwed up everything for Castellesi, but this makes it more sound like he was part of the problem.
As if they were in it together.
Yeah.
It might have been that they were writing backwards and forwards to each other, and
some of the letters got caught,
yeah.
Maybe? I'm not sure. Nothing that I read for Polydore Virgil ever laid anything at Castellesi's feet. It was entirely Polydore Virgil did this and Castellesi was brought into it. All of a sudden, whoops, you lost your position because I screwed up.
Well,
yeah.
Maybe the letters were all coming from Polydore to Castellesi, but he didn't write back saying, oh, how dare you talk like that about the Pope, when perhaps he should have done.
Yeah.
Perhaps he just said, not have a point.
Yeah.
But anyway, he wasn't completely destitute because he still had the revenue from Bath and Wells, as well as some of the other little jobs he was only sort of doing. Castellesi then sought sanctuary with Maximilian.
Oh.
Well, the thing I said, it said who sent him back to Rome, which makes it sound as if he just got in the door and said, right, you're going straight back there.
I don't want to talk to you, don't want to see you, you are not
No,
here.
he had a job for him.
Oh.
Yes. Because Maximilian, in his usual humble way, was hoping to become Pope Emperor.
What? Oh my gosh. Did it involve the King of Denmark? Giving him ships. Like, come on.
Oh, you do get the impression that Maximilian lives in this lovely little Maximilian world, doesn't he?
And it's almost all fantasy, every bit of it.
Yeah, well, Castellesi was sent back to Rome to make it not fantasy, make it fact, but nothing came of it, so...
I wonder if Maximilian's like one of those people, you know, you've met those people that they're really, really angry at somebody, and in their head they have the argument with that person, and all of a sudden they're okay with that person again, even though they never actually spoke to them. That's kind of the way I see Maximilian. Like, this actually happened. No, it didn't.
Yes. Yes. And I'm not sure who you talk to about becoming Pope Emperor. You're not going to talk to the Pope, are you?
No.
So I'm not sure who he was sending Castellesi back to talk to. Just he probably said, go back to Rome and make me Pope Emperor. Oh, all right then.
What?
Is that a thing?
Just that I can just see him sitting there with this color draining out of his face. What? I gotta go back there and now tell the Pope that he can't be Pope? And that a person who has absolutely no religious vocation whatsoever is gonna be Pope? Just the sweat starts going.
Luckily, for him, Pope Julius died in 1513.
Phew, dodged that bullet.
And so a conclave was convened.
Did he try to get Maximilian as the Pope during that conclave? Hey, Maximilian.
Okay, well, unless he was going under the name of Cardinal Bainbridge, no, because that's who Castellesi voted for in a secret ballot, which can't have been that secret since we know about it.
They were not secret in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Giggly did some amphibolizing, and Castellesi changed his allegiance to Cardinal Giovanni de' Medici,
Oh, Medici.
which was just as well since he became Leo X, and therefore looked favourably on Castellesi. And we haven't done Leo X yet, but I would think having him look favourably on you is a far the safer place to be.
Yes, yes. You do not want to be on the wrong side of the Pope.
Not that Pope.
Especially when you are a priest. In any level, don't tick off the Pope.
Castellesi was back as papal collector.
Oh, Peter Spence.
He was given back his palace, which
Really?
which he had lost under Julius. So
Oh.
his was quite foresighted. Whether
Yes.
somebody said, "Get rid of that thing, otherwise you're going to lose it forever." So he put himself. Well, I was going to say he put himself in Henry's good books, and managed to get his palace back. But he didn't really put himself in Henry's good books.
Not if Henry's
then
ratting him
dumped
out.
straight in it. Oh, they were a funny lot, weren't they? In 1514, Castellesi and Polydore Virgil both sought the red hat for Wolsey. But Giggly somehow managed to get hold of Castellesi's correspondence to Virgil,
Uh-oh.
and he handed it over to Wolsey.
Oh, yes.
So it was Giggly all along.
Oh, no.
And it turned out, as we heard before, that they didn't think much of Wolsey, and they were not pushing for his cardinalship.
No, they were
Well, I was going to say as much as he thought, but at all, really, wasn't it?
They were doing the opposite. Don't give
Yes.
him a cardinalship. The guy's a shyster.
Well, Virgil, as we heard, ended up spending some time in the Tower,
Yes.
although Castellesi managed to secure his release with the help of money from Pope Leo, but not until 1516, so we're talking 2 years later.
Yes.
And you don't want to be in the Tower at all, but you don't want to be in it for 2 years.
No, but again, he wasn't in a dungeon. He was in the paid-for apartments.
Yeah.
But still, you're in the tower.
Things happen to people in the Tower as well, even when they were in the posh bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Despite all this help from Pope Leo, Castellesi, convinced by a prophecy that Leo would die young and be replaced by an old man called Adrian, joined the Petrucci conspiracy, which was trying to make the dying young bit a self-fulfilling prophecy. So,
How?
well, by assassinating the Pope.
Oh. That'll do it.
They caught it early, and it was quashed, and many were executed. Castellesi was put under house arrest following a public confession. So he was quite lucky, especially at that whacking great palace. I mean, house arrest can't have been that onerous, can it?
Especially since it's his palace.
Yes.
Oh, I get to stay home for a while. Ooh, where are the books?
Yes. Sounds good to me.
That sounds wonderful to me, too. Isn't that sad? Would you hate prison? Not if I had enough books.
No. But he was in trouble all over the place because Leo was understandably miffed to him in Rome.
Yes.
He had tried to have him assassinated, after all. Wolsey was turning Henry VIII against him back in England. He hadn't managed to make Maximilian the Pope Emperor, or Emperor Pope, or whatever it was. So Castellesi did what he always did, and he fled to Venice.
Hello.
And now he was deprived of his Bath and Wells job, which went to Wolsey.
Wolsey.
Surprise,
Yes.
surprise.
Mr. Wolsey got it.
Castellesi stayed in Venice and very sensibly would not be coaxed out. He'd been coaxed out before and he didn't like it very much.
No.
However, Leo died in 1521 and Castellesi immediately set off for Rome, where just a month later he too died. And it's thought that he was poisoned by one of his servants. And I tried to find out more information about that and there just wasn't any information to find.
Huh.
Frustratingly, apart from the fact that virtually everyone in Rome was poisoned, weren't they? Unless they were stabbed and shoved in a river.
Multiple times. Or beaten to death by their husband.
But Castellesi's life is a lesson in what happens to you if you rely on people to give you anything, because they can take it away again.
Yes.
But with certain jobs, that was the only way to get it, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that is the story of Adriano Castellesi.
You started so
Which
well.
is fun to say.
It was a beautiful climb and then a pretty rocky plummet.
Yes.
And Castellesi is fun to say.
Yes, well, he killed a pope. And
He
tried to
did.
kill another. I mean, that's quite a CV.
Yeah,
or
you are
resume.
definitely going to hell. No purgatory for you, monsieur. You are toast.
I mean, he didn't mean to kill the first pope, or did he?
I'm going to guess he did.
You think he did? Because he did.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the end of our episode on Adriano Castellesi.
So join us for our next full-length episode
On somebody.
soon.
Since we don't know
yes.
when we're putting these out yet. Goodbye.
Goodbye.